All right, we're back, and I am believing that the things that you're hearing me say is stirring your imagination a little bit and preparing you for how you want to begin to facilitate your life group. In this video, I want to continue the thought I had started in the last video about how we respond to help cultivate and facilitate discussion. In the last video, I talked about affirming your responses and helping that to be a source of dialogue and content creation, so to speak, in your life group. But in this video, I want to talk about what happens when you have people jump off the rails a little bit and they say something maybe that's not biblically accurate, or they may overshare a little bit, or they may go down a path that they weren't really, we didn't need to go down that path, and that's where they wanted to go. How do you kind of get things back on the rails? Well, there's a couple things I want to talk about here that can help with that, because even if you have the best of intentions and you prepare everything well, there's just sometimes in a group where conversation can really go sideways. But if you know how to navigate those moments, it can be really, not only can you get it back on track, but it can be a encouraging thing to navigate through as well. So a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about what happens with tangents when people change the subject and they go down side rail. I want to talk about when somebody says something anti-biblical or heretical. And I want to talk about what happens if somebody begins to maybe overshare a little bit, over-divulge, and make it about their story instead of about the content that you're trying to do, because that can be a problem sometimes too. So before we get into all that, what I want to say is when somebody responds, the best thing you can do is find something to latch onto that's worth affirming. So maybe they give a response and they go on this long explanation, and 90% of what they said is inaccurate. Well, what is the 10% that you can affirm? And so you can say something like, hey, I really like what you had to say about that. That's right on the money. And I think we all need to be reminded of that. The other stuff that you talked about, I want to know a little bit, understand a little bit more. Can we talk a little bit about that? Okay. And so if you can latch onto something that is positive, that is correct, that was a good thing, a good statement, or a good attitude, start with that rather than immediately shutting down. Everything you said was garbage. You don't want people to be completely shut down. There's got to be some value in most responses. Sometimes there's not, but a lot of times there's something worth affirming. So that's what I recommend first. Find something to affirm before you jump on the correction side of things. Now, if somebody is going to say something heretical, if they're going to say something that is contrary to Scripture, there's some ways that we can go about that. I would recommend asking follow-up questions. So you could ask a question like, what did you mean when you said this? Can you explain that a little bit more? And let them work through it. And then you can talk, you have a platform to talk about the thing that they believe that may not be true. Then you can respond and say, well, actually, I have read in Scripture where it says this, which indicates that the truth really is this. So though we might be inclined to think this way, or maybe we've even heard it taught this way, the reality is that this is what the Scripture says. And so we can have a gentle guiding by asking them first to clarify what they mean, because people they don't like to be misunderstood. I'm sure you feel that way too. And so what you don't want is you don't want to correct somebody and have them feel like they didn't get to actually explain what they meant. So let them say what they meant by asking a question. What did you mean when you said X, Y, or Z? Or maybe you can say, hey, how did you arrive at the conclusion that Jesus wasn't really God? Or whatever the statement might have been. You can ask them to cite their source so that you're not combating out of your own opinion, but you're causing them to look at the Scriptures and find their evidence that way. And then you can have a conversation through that. Now, that's one thing. Another thing I want to talk about is what happens when somebody jumps the rails and changes the subject. This happens all the time. And I will say this. Sometimes I strategically just let it happen. Because if people are talking and they're laughing and they're smiling, the last thing I want to do is say, stop having fun and get back to business. That can be really discouraging for your group to want to participate. So I try to be strategic. And if it's not a rant, if it's not political, if it's not completely outrageous and it's just a little side application or a story of an experience that they had, then I'll let them run with it. And then I can say, okay, let's get back on track. Let's move back to what we're talking about. That's a cool thing. Maybe we could talk about that after group, but let's get to this now. Now, if they're kind of going on a rant, if they're going on a side tangent, you can gently but directly say, hey guys, I know this is something you're passionate about, but this really isn't our best time to talk about this. If you want to continue this conversation after we dismiss today and have kind of a side conversation about it, then by all means. But right now, what I really want to do is there's something that I want us to get to today. And I want to make sure we all have a chance to get there. So if we can steer back on track for a little bit, that would be great. Okay, so be strategic, be discerning. Is this something that needs to be turned back, or can I let this one ride out and so we can move back on it? So we have what happens if they say something anti-biblical, heretical? What happens if they jump the rails? There's also an instance where they might use this as a therapy time. And they might just start confessing, having this like, oh, and this happened in my life, and this happened in my life. And we have to be careful that we want those moments to happen. We need people to share, but we also don't want people to dominate and make the passage that you're studying all about their focus. People in life groups are generally compassionate and empathetic, and they will wrap themselves around that person and hear them out. And it can sometimes feel wrong or rude to interrupt somebody's personal moment. But life groups can't be for our own personal moments all the time. They can be sometimes, and sometimes those are strategic, and sometimes you even craft a life group discussion so that those things can take place. But a lot of times, people just want to, they want to be seen, they want to be heard. So what you can do is you can use a tactic that I've already explained to you. If somebody begins to share, before they get in too deep, you can empathize with them as the leader and say, wow, it sounds like God's really doing something in your life right now. Or, wow, it sounds like you've really been through a lot. I'm glad you're here. And I think that you being part of this group is really going to help bring stability and strength and growth into your life. And so I'm thankful that you're here. If you want to talk a little bit more about this, I'm sure that, if you want to come talk to me or anybody in this group, we want to be there for you as you walk through this season. So I just want you to know that I'm thankful for you being here. Okay? And just say okay and let them agree and then move back into your lesson. It's just a tactic affirming what they're saying. You don't want to respond in a negative. You want to respond positively so that they can feel validated and seen, but also so that the group as a whole can work through the message that you have. And like I said, there's a discerning component. That's why you're the leader. That's why God has put you in that position so that you can provide the pastoral oversight in that. Maybe you're not a pastor, I get that, but there's still a pastoral care, a shepherding that takes place in that moment, and God has called you to that.